Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on Sunday, the 7th of June. Yes, we come to you live at 7 a.m. every single morning on New Zealand Sports Radio. It's your best way to start the day up to date with all the important sports news. And in the news today, we have the Belarusian League, Premier League's results from overnight. Parramatta beats Manly in controversial finish. Names start to emerge as Raelings Castle's full-time replacement, and also names start to emerge as to who might be our new domestic commentators for cricket, plus lots of other news. And let's get straight into it with the Belarusian League. Overnight, we had Sluts versus Torpedo battling out a 1-1 draw to the top of the table teams, but that sees Sluts drop down to 6th and Torpedo climb back up to 2nd. Aishlosh versus Rio Brest also was a 1-1 draw. Slavia lost to Neyman Gordon at home 1-3. Poor result for Sluts there. And Dynamo Brest with the big win overnight, 6-1 over Minsk. Minsk, you remember, have missed a couple of rounds due to coronavirus in their squad, so perhaps they're a little bit rusty there. That sees Dynamo Brest climb up to 5th in the table. Bate, who are top of the table, still have to play this weekend. They'll be playing overnight against visiting Verbesk. We also have Belashina versus Dynamo Minsk, and Shakator versus Energek overnight tonight. Moving on to cricket news, and Spark Sport are setting, obviously is the new domestic TV channel for cricket here in New Zealand, taking over from Sky, who have been broadcasting that for the past 20 years. Obviously the big unknown is when it's actually going to kick off with cricket here in New Zealand, waiting for those overseas, wait for the borders to be, or wait for border controls, so we know if overseas teams can come and visit. So yes, but at the moment they're looking at an October start with both the West Indies and Bangladesh apparently coming in for a 2020 series. But we'll have to wait and see whether those fixtures will actually go ahead. But the headline news is that Brendan McCullum could be the lead commentator for Spark Sport. First off, Spark have got to get themselves a deal with one of the production companies, and then they'll be sorting out their commentary teams. But McCullum looks like he is being is going to be one of it. Obviously, Scotty Stevenson, who is part of the Spark stable, will be a part of that commentary team as well. And it'll be interesting to see who else will be in there. Our experience from the Rugby World Cup is that it will not be a similar one to Sky. They'll have different commentary teams. At least Sky having the overseas cricket for now. Moving on to birthdays, and Stephen's going to bring us up to date with who's going to be eating cakes today.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning to everybody on what is a Sunday morning. So if you've managed to get up and tune in, I'm going to give you today's birthdays. In birthdays today, the heir apparent to the greatest ever New Zealand fast bowler, a Kiwi standoff legend, and finally a North Harbour number 9 who represented the All Blacks, and that's where we start. Anthony Strawn, born this day, the 7th of June 1966, is a former New Zealand rugby union player. A halfback, Strawn represented Otago, North Harbour and Auckland at provincial level, and was a member of the New Zealand national side, the All Blacks, between 92 and 95. He played 17 tests for the All Blacks, including 11 internationals. Strawn celebrates his 54th birthday today. Fred Arcoy, born this day, the 7th of June 1956, is a Samoan-born New Zealand former professional rugby league player. Arcoy moved to Sydney in 1981 to play professionally for the North Sydney Bears, then to England to play at Hull FC from 83 to 87. Arcoy, who celebrates his 64th birthday today, made his international debut for New Zealand Māori in 1975 at the age of 18. He toured Australia with the side and participated in the 1975 Pacific Cup and faced Australia. Australia, Wales, England, France, and that was in New Zealand. The same year, he made the national Kiwi touring team to England and France during the World Cup series. He was vice-captain in 79, 80, 81, and 83, and captained the New Zealand team in 79, becoming the New Zealand's youngest ever captain at just 22, leading the 18-11 third test victory over the British tourists after they'd lost the first two tests under Graham West, then again in 1984 when he led New Zealand to their first 3-0 victory over Great Britain touring team, also meaning that New Zealand had never lost a game under Arcoy's leadership. In 1983, he was a member of the New Zealand team that beat the Australians for the first time since 1971 at Lang Park in Brisbane, Australia. He represented New Zealand Kiwi Rugby League team from the 1975 to 85, achieving 28 appearances in the Kiwis jersey. Move on to a very, very good cricketer. Shane Bond, born this day, the 7th of June 1975, is a New Zealand cricket coach and former cricketer. Present bowling coach of Mumbai Indians, described as New Zealand's best fast bowler since Sir Richard Hadlee. He represented New Zealand in Test, ODI, and 2020 international cricket and played for Canterbury in the New Zealand Domestic Cricket League. Warwickshire in English domestic cricket, a right-arm fast bowler. His fastest ever delivery was clocked at 156.4 kilometres against India in the 2003 World Cup. Bond celebrates his 45th birthday today and had a career unfortunately plagued with injuries, chiefly recurring stress fractures of the back. He had surgery in 2004 to try and prevent further injury, but it was only partially successful. In later years, he suffered back problems, knee injuries, and abdominal tear. These problems, in conjunction with a late start to his fully professional cricket career, limited his appearances in both international and domestic cricket. Since his debut in the 2001-2002 season, he only managed to appear in 18 test matches for New Zealand before he retired from test cricket in December 2009 at the age of 34. And that's our birthdays for this morning. I'll be back with a bumper edition of Rugby League. A lot to talk about.
Thank you, Stephen. Shane Bond also was he went with the other 2020 league when the IPL was kicking off. There were two competitive ones to see which one would be the big one, and the IPL won out over that, and he got himself on the wrong side of that equation as well, which I think also reduced some of the appearances Shane Bond made as well. Moving on to rugby news, and the names to replace Raelene Castle have started to appear. Phil Kearns and David Gallop are the two at the top of the list. Two people who were decided who applied last time this job came up, and two people who decided who weren't as good as Raelene Castle and therefore missed out on the job. So they're back again. It looks like having another crack. Other candidates look like the NRL Chief Operating Officer Nick Weeks, Adelaide Crows boss and former Rugby Australia Senior Executive Andrew Fagan, Sanzar Chief Andy Marinos, and former Sydney Rugby Union President David Begg. Tony Dempsey also apparently, who found a head of the Rugby Union Players Association, would be interested, and apparently his successor Greg Harris, who ran the Waratahs, is another person who might be interested as well. So a very long list of people at the moment. I think basically the press are guessing as to who might be involved. One person we know who won't be there probably is Matt Carroll, who was the Australian Olympic Committee boss, who a month ago was nailed on for the role, but he's now a firm no for that one. Another one that apparently is unlikely is Todd Greenberg, the former NRL chief, as well. Apparently he is not interested in the role. So, but Rugby Australia have hired themselves a search firm who are looking for that, and we'll see how that pans out over the coming weeks. I'm going to hand you back now to Stephen, who, as he says, has got a bumper NRL update for us.
a whole lot happening on the field, and of course, as in rugby league, off the field as well. Mitchell Moses, a field goal with 7 minutes to play, helped seal a perfect start for the Parramatta Eels, who have opened the NRL season with 4 straight wins. The Parramatta Eels beat Manly Seagulls 19-16 in a dramatic match after opening out to a 12-2 lead in the first half. There will be plenty said about a non-Manly try close to full-time. We'll talk about that a little bit more. When Ruben Garrick sprinted across with a minute to go, it appeared Manly had pulled off a stunning victory, but he was pulled back for a forward pass from fullback Tom Trojovic. I thought I flipped it back. I didn't see too much of it, Trojovic said after the match. But that's the way it goes. A Moses field goal stretched the Eels' lead out to 19-12, just when it seemed Manly were getting the best of the arm wrestle. When George Taufua scored his second try in the corner soon after, it was all on. The other try was scored by Dylan Walker at the 52-minute mark, beg your pardon. Parramatta Eels scored tries through Michael Jennings in the 30th minute, Dylan Brown in the 39th, and Kane Evans 1 minute later. Mitchell Moses offered his take on the crucial decision at the end. It was a forward pass. I'm happy the refs got it right. Of course he'd say that. He played for the winning team. The pass appeared to be fair, coming out of the back of the hands and drifting forward. With only one referee for the restarted season, there were already fears that errors would be made. Parramatta had to not get too far ahead of itself, though. He was going to take a field goal when he had a chance, which came off a fast play the ball, Moses said. Just to recap those point scorers again, Jennings, Brown and Evans with 3 tries, Moses adding 3 goals, and the drop kick for Manly Seagulls, Garrick and Taufua, who scored a brace of tries. Garrick also kicked 2 goals but missed 2 conversions at the end of the day, which may have proved costly, but I guess we'll never know. Just listen further to that game. NRL head of football Graham Annesley has admitted the forward pass call that cost Manly a match-winning try against Parramatta was incorrectly ruled, but he says a second pocket referee would not have impacted on the decision. The Sea Eagles were denied a thrilling come from the end win over the Eels, obviously, last night when we spoke about that pass. Well, I think that might be just the price they actually paid for all the cutbacks in the NRL this year, dropping that second referee. And the other game played last night, the Cronulla Sharks beat the North Queensland Cowboys in Townsville 26-16 after leading 12-6 at halftime. Respective wingers felt for the Cowboys and Mulitalo for the winners also touched down twice. So there you go. A couple of teams are in good forms. And once again, the NRL's NRL's 6 again rule entered the game next most, with people loving the new development. But while players and coaches have bristled at the new rule, many are starting to brush it off at this stage after fans feared the speed and the continuity of the game. Even AFL commentators greats were blown away by it. But we're seeing lopsided matches to start round 4, which basically given the fans that glimpse of fear what the true nature of these rules are. Record 59 result for the Roosters against the Broncos, followed by a 26-0 win for the Panthers over the Warriors, have delivered some lopsided results. Roosters coach Trent Robinson has warned that it may become the norm, which is what a league doesn't really need at this stage. Now, if you just bear with me, I'm just going to check in on who we've got coming up today. We've got the Knights and the Raiders from 6:05 p.m. this evening, and the last game of the round is the Titans versus the West Tigers, and that's from 8:30 p.m. this morning. I can remember Paul Rugby tampering with the rules many years back, where they had quick tap penalties. It actually speeded the game up, but at times we were wondering what we were actually watching. It sort of took away the nuances of the game, and it's all about, shall I say, having to be able to compete for the ball is what we saw in rugby. It was definitely a fast-moving spectacle, but then you sort of found yourself scratching your head, and I sense the league having similar issues.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear from the boys on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. On the league hour, our league show about this, because both of them were pro having one referee last week. So we'll see if this week's change has happened, has been part of that. Also, these scores blowing out, some people have suggested that actually the having no fans or no crowd has impacted the losing side more than the winning side. Do the teams from behind use that crowd atmosphere to give them the lift to get themselves back in the game? Is it because there is no atmosphere that once you're down you keep going down, or is it down to the rule change? It'll be interesting to find.
That's great, Paul. I was going to say that is actually a great point. Sometimes with the crowd support, it can keep you in the game. All the encouragement coming from the sideline. I know the crowd doesn't play the game, but it'll be very, very interesting to see Brad and Sanjay their take when they rock up on the league show this Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Absolutely. Now moving into other sports news, and over in the NFL, the commissioner has come out and responded to a player's video asking for the NFL to make comments about the current situation over there with Black Lives Matter. And to quote Richard Goodell, he said, "We, the NFL League, condemn racism and the systemic oppression of black people. We, the National Football League, admit we were wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier and encouraging all to speak out and peacefully protest. We, the National Football League, believe Black lives matter." Now, we'll see. Colin Kaepernick was someone who took a knee a few years back during the anthem to protest about police brutality, and he basically has not been part of the league since. So clearly, that middle comment there about wrong for not listening to NFL players earlier was a reference to that, and it'll be interesting to see if Colin Kaepernick will come back in to the league. He also made comments that he would be protesting with the players. So it'll be interesting to see if Goodell comes out and actually takes a knee at some point. That would be a very, very big message to people. He said, "I personally protest with you and wants to be part of the much needed change in this country." Yes, we'll see how the NFL, when it comes back, reacts to this, and whether apparently he did not talk to all the owners. So we'll see if individual owners have a different response to the NFL, because there is still a rule in place that bans players from taking a knee during the national anthem. If they don't want to stand, they have to be in the dressing room. It's just not. It has not been enforced by agreement with the Players Association. Drew Brees, the star quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, also has been in the news. He initially came out with a comment saying that he did not agree with anyone disrespecting the flag or the national anthem. He has come out now and apologized for those comments, and said that this is not a thing about the flag. So I'll quote him out here. "Through my ongoing conversations with friends, teammates, and leaders in the Black community, I realized this is not an issue about the American flag. It has never been. We can no longer use the flag to turn people away or distract them from the real issues that face our Black communities. We did this back in 2017, and regretfully, I brought it back with my comments this week. We must stop talking about the flag and shift our attention to the real issues of systematic racial injustice, economic oppression, police brutality, and judicial and prison reform. We are at a crucial juncture in our nation's history. If not now, then when?" You've got to say, with this change in mood by the NFL, you've got to wonder. They often talk about sport mirroring society. Maybe that is what we're seeing there. Moving on to tennis. And after we heard Rafa Nadal saying that he is not prepared to travel to New York yet for the US Open, Novak Djokovic, the world number one, has called the measures that would be required for the US Open to happen to be extreme. He said we would not have access to Manhattan. We would have to sleep in hotels at the airport. Be tested twice or 3 times per week. Also, we could bring one person to the club, which is really impossible. I mean, you need your coach, then a fitness trainer, then a physiotherapist. So he's saying he would need at least 3 people. Now, the top players would have multiple people. Obviously, the lower down players would have less support, as they can afford less support. But clearly, the top players say that's what they need. With him talking out, it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts the tournament, because if the top players aren't going to turn up, then there's no point really running the tournament at the moment. You've got to say, the being in your hotel and not being able to go to Manhattan to your favorite restaurant is perhaps a sacrifice you should make. I mean, look at what the Warriors are doing over in Australia. But but talking about that, the number of people going to the tournament is perhaps a bigger one that they need to look at. And yes, Stephen, you have something you'd like to say.
Yeah, just a couple of little quick things. And once again, Hugh, who's watching the show, sharp as a tack at 5:15 in the morning, because tonight's final NRL game isn't the final game. We've got another game tomorrow night between the Bulldogs and the Dragons, which is actually going to be the last game of the round, and that game's going to be played at Bankwest Stadium in Sydney. Kickoff is 5:06 p.m. New Zealand time. So look out for that game tomorrow night. Now, also last night, I copied a tweet which was posted out by the NRL journalist, a Fox Sports journalist, and it was Sharks, reporting that Sharks, Matt Moylan and Sean Johnson, had initially failed temperature checks, and basically is this the first indication of the absolute chaos that could beset the NRL this season? I guess it's something we're going to be watching with real interest, Paul, because it is going to be something out of Keystone Cops if it actually does happen, given the lockdown rules probably not quite as stringent as New Zealand at this time.
Clearly, that they haven't had the 0 days that we've managed to achieve over here. So clearly, the coronavirus still is definitely going around in Australia. I did also see some people comment about the way the temperature checks were being used, and perhaps they weren't being used properly. They're using in-ear temperature thermometers, and perhaps hadn't lined them up properly. So also, some question marks there on Twitter. But it's difficult to tell from just a one-off photo, isn't it? Let's be honest. The other, we're running long today, so we'll very quickly run through the last few items. It looks like tennis. Tennis. It looks like golf might be able to have crowd open up to fans for the Memorial Tournament. The PGA have already said their first 4 tournaments will not have fans. We'll go into that more tomorrow if we have time. Also, the return of the IndyCar series, and obviously Scott Dixon, our local lad there, is excited for that. Again, we'll cover that in more detail tomorrow if we have time. Congratulations to Nathan Aspellini, who won the PDC Home Tour title. That's in the darts, and he, funnily enough, got himself a dinner plate and wrote on it, and turned the dinner plate into a trophy, because obviously, as they're all being in isolation, they can't get a proper trophy to him. So congratulations to him. As he says, people were skeptical at first at playing darts at home via this, but they have actually loved it. But he does hope that he is the one and only winner of this, and they don't have to do this again. Finally, snooker is happening, and Ronnie O'Sullivan has come out about how he struggled in the bubble of that. Again, being isolated or being restricted to just your room, not being a hotel room, not being able to go for a walk, not being able to have any other food apart from what's on the in-room service, basically having to be in the same place for the entire tournament, he found to be very difficult. But amusingly enough, on social media, the biggest talk was about his moustache, and not about his playing. So a lovely moustache that he's grown during isolation. You have now started the day the best way, up to speed with all the important sports news. Don't forget, you can also listen to us on the go via our podcast. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, all your favorite podcatcher. That's how I listen to us in the car as I'm driving around. You can do the exact same thing, or you can listen to us as you're pottering around in the garden or doing the housework, whatever your favorite way it is. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining us. And don't forget, we'll be back at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, bringing you the morning sports briefing.